In this video, I'm going to show you how you can prepare to do really well in the UCAT if you're applying to medical or dental school this year. They say that fortune favors the prepared mind. So although it's very early to be thinking about your strict UCAT preparation yet, I'm going to make a suggestion for a few things in this video that if you know them ahead of time, it's going to help direct your preparation this year when you do begin to prepare for the UCAT. What I want you to understand is that UCAT is one of, if not arguably, the most important element of your med school application. Because although there are probably about 8 out of the 44 universities that don't take UCAT, most of them do, and although a lot of them take the UCAT score holistically, these days, especially around COVID, although there's no explicit cutoff score, a lot of them are looking at that very heavily lately to decide whether to invite you to interview. So before I tell you the best revision plan and how to go about it, let's start by first looking at the end goal. So what kind of scores do we need to be aiming for to be within a chance of getting into medicine? So if you go on the UCAT consortium, you can look at the statistical data for 2021 and what kind of scores got you in what decile and what the typical averages were. So let's have a look. So last year, the average score was 2499, which is pretty standard as averages go throughout the years. And lo and behold, as always, the verbal reasoning was the lowest scoring section on average. Decision making and quantitative reasoning and abstract reasoning are all roughly around the same sort of level. And then as you can see in the deciles, really what I would say is that you typically want to be aiming for about a 2,600 at least to be within a chance of getting into most medical schools. If you're going to the really competitive schools like maybe King's College or maybe Bristol who require high UCAT score, even Manchester, you do want to be aiming for about 2,700, 2,800. I would say that you almost always need a band 2 or above. There is a video that I've made about what to do if you get a low UCAT score that you can check out here, and what you can do if you get a band 3, because there are some universities that will look at it, but typically you want to be aiming for the first top 2 bands, so band 1 and 2, to make sure that you're in with a chance of going to any of the universities and you're not cut off and limited in your options. I'd also say that if you're applying as a GEM applicant, I would almost forget these deciles because the cutoff is so high, you're needing at least a 2,800. For example, last year, Newcastle needed about 2,900 to be even within a chance of being invited to interview. And I'm really thankful that of the people who joined my elite coaching program before we started our UCAT training back in March of last year, everybody got above average, and then out of the 60 or so people that were on there, about 11 got over 3,000, which is really, really good, and just goes to show that the sooner you start familiarizing yourself and doing the techniques that I'm about to outline in this video, the higher chance you've got of scoring highly in this test and getting into the medical school that you want, especially if it's a high cutoff and it's competitive. So now that we've actually set the goal and know what we're aiming for, paradoxically, I now want you to completely forget about that, because focusing on the score too early is going to drive you absolutely crazy. The way that we're going to prepare, which I'm going to outline now, is actually by firstly not worrying about the scores too much. We first need to go through our 3-phase process of exactly how we prepare for the UCAT. And actually I made a video here where I explain exactly how you should prepare in a step-by-step mode and what you should do in detail at each stage. So I recommend after this you watch that video to kind of give you a really rigorous plan of how you should prepare. But I'm going to summarize it very quickly in 3 stages. The first is what I call familiarization and understanding. So what you need to do, the UCAT is a very specific test with really weird questions that are asked in a really specific way. So it's a very unique skill that you have to train, especially for that exam. So the first part is really getting familiar with all the question types, all the traps that they lay and how to avoid them. And the most important thing is understanding how to employ the techniques that you are then going to lay the foundations for before you speed up. The second stage is practicing questions untimed. There's absolutely no point in speeding up and doing timed things because it's just going to drive you crazy until you get familiar with understanding the questions and you're getting them correct. Then over in that video that I talk about when to move on to the third step, which is doing time practice and getting yourself exam ready. That's when you really crank up the intensity, just get in full UCAT mode to make sure that you're maximizing your score. And I'll show you exactly how to do that if you go over to that video. So as promised, I'm going to direct you to resources for all the 5 sections that are going to give you the highest chance of scoring well. So what I've done is collated all the videos I've ever made on YouTube and taken the ones that have got the best comments for people saying, oh, this video really helped me do X, Y, and Z, and kind of employ all the techniques that you need to score highly. So what I've done is made a playlist here, which is the highest yield tips for all 5 of the sections. What I recommend is that you go and watch each of the videos, so take a section at a time, watch that video, watch the highest yield tips, and what you'll see within each of those videos, I've then taken the best 3 or 4 videos for that section that I've made, like I say, that have had had the highest comments or the best comments from people saying how useful they are, and made a small playlist for each segment. So basically you've got a playlist which has the 5 greatest hits videos, the highest yield videos for all of the sections, so one video for each section. And within that video, you have another playlist which has the kind of 3 to 4 best videos for each of that section. So that will give you kind of the highest yield materials for everything that you need for the UCAT to make sure that you score highly. So what I recommend is that you start with this playlist here, take your time, dissect it, check out the videos that are associated with it. Once you've familiarized yourself with it, you might want to go a little bit deeper by checking out my online course, which is kind of 20 hours of this, but going into a lot more depth. And then if you've got any more questions or anything you want to ask me, just drop a comment here, and I'm making videos all the time for the UCAT for this year. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you over in those videos.